For those that don't know me, my name is Mark Jackson. I run Skyscape's partner business. To put that into context, Skyscape's partner business now delivers 40% of Skyscape's revenues. It's the part of the Skyscape's business that is accelerating the quickest, and it's also the part of Skyscape's business that probably gives us the most amount of new conversation, learning experiences, and certainly challenges. My role is threefold. First thing that I do is work very well with 150 partners and embed them, onboard them, make sure they understand exactly what the Skyscape value proposition is. The second one is spend an awful lot of time really engaging with those partners, with Skyscape, to make sure that we have the right propositions, not just to sell directly to public sector, but also to make sure that they're valid for partners to consume. And the last one, and perhaps my favourite one, and perhaps this is Skyscape's route to market, is very much going out to the market, educating them on what our thought leadership is. For myself, if we've got all this intelligence, if we don't share it, then we're never going to make it better. So we spend a lot of time writing white papers, blueprints, thought leadership papers out there, and getting that information out so the marketplace can actually start to benefit from our learnings, and collectively we can all grow cloud together. And as we all grow cloud together, we'll all end up taking more of the share. So UK public sector is full of buzzwords. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, although I probably could. But clearly the one we're going to talk around today is digital marketplace. For me, that was a big change. Moving from cloud store to digital marketplace actually really started to put into context what it was that we were trying to do with cloud. So it's not about cloud, it's about delivering a digital experience. It's about delivering a digital experience through a marketplace. So I'm going to spend a lot of time today helping you guys understand from a Skyscape perspective what our learning is of working within a marketplace. And I spend a lot of time with my partners really challenging them on, guys, why do you want to get into the marketplace? What does a marketplace mean to you? So let's take a look at that. So first of all, what is a marketplace? An open place where goods are offered for sale. Two key things that the marketplace actually gives us. The first one is it gives us a free flow of clear and transparent information. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Everybody can see everyone else's price points. Everyone else can see everyone else's service descriptions. It's fantastic because we can all move forward together, and we've all got that full transparency of information, of prices, of service descriptions, of what the propositions actually are. And the last one is clearly a marketplace is driven by market dynamics. So it's the market that's making us change. As suppliers, we have to change to address the market. We have to change to address how we present, how we price, how we dress up to address the different types of markets that we're in. So I spend a lot of my time with customers really asking them about, so you want to get into this marketplace, you want to deliver cloud services to the government, what does that actually mean? So you're thinking of taking a marketplace, you're thinking of getting into the marketplace, you're thinking of selling to the UK public sector. And 9 times out of 10, when I start talking to my partners, which is Skyscape's fastest growing part of the business, they don't know the answer to the vast majority of these questions. So they don't actually know the market they're getting into. So there may be an ISV. And they say, well, we're going to go and sell to UK public sector SaaS. It ain't that easy. It's quite difficult. So know the market you're getting into, but know the subsector of the market you're getting into. So you talk a very different language if you're talking to central government as you do if you're talking to local regional government, as you do if you're talking to healthcare or the different subsectors within the marketplace. Know your customers. Know who your customers are. Know what they want to buy. Know how they want to buy it. And know what they want to buy. So if you can put a proposition forward that is relevant for a medical or for a healthcare audience, using healthcare terminology, with healthcare metrics for pricing and bundles, you'll likely be more successful because people will understand your proposition in their language. Know your competitors. As we mentioned earlier on, G-Cloud, fully transparent environment. Everything is on there. Everything is transparent. Everything is available. You can do as much diligence as you want on all the competitors that you will ever come up against. It's important you know your market manager. So it's important you know the guy that's running the market. It's important you know the rules from the guy that's running the market. Because if you don't know the guy that's running the market and you don't know the rules, you'll never be successful in it. make sure you build your supply chain. Make sure you're not going to do everything in the marketplace. So you may be out there selling apples and pears. You're probably not going to grow the apples and pears. You've probably not got a fleet of vans to get the apples and pears to the store. You're probably, you're probably not best placed to do all of those things. So know what your unique value is and build your supply chain and partnerships behind that unique value so you're able to deliver what you deliver best. Know your cost model. You'd be absolutely amazed how many partners come to us and don't know their cost model. They don't know where they're starting from. They don't know where they need to get to. And they say, you know what, we'll throw something up into G-Cloud and we'll keep our fingers crossed that someone will come and buy it. God knows what will happen if they ever did actually sell anything, because they wouldn't know how much they're making or not. Understand what assurances your customers will need. So we're going to come on to it in a little while. But is it okay to say, trust me, Gov, that's a great service and you've got no problem with it? Or do you need to be able to present a body of evidence, some sort of assurance to your customers that actually you have got that assured product? Know your value. Know your specific value, but know the value of the supply chain you're pulling together to deliver that value. It's okay, sometimes the right proposition might be, we'll do all of it. But sometimes the right proposition might be, we're an expert in this, and we partner with 3 or 4 different providers to deliver a supply chain of value, which delivers you infinitely more value with infinitely more specialisms to the end game. And price your products accordingly. Make sure that they're well priced because you've got access to the market. So you've decided you're going to enter the market. How do you make your stall stand out? So I've already talked about knowing your value, but you've also got to present your offerings in a very meaningful way, easy to consume, very prescriptive, very easy to understand, well-priced way. They're service descriptions. And actually, you spend a lot of time making sure that there's clarity in that, because if there isn't clarity in it, it becomes vague. And if you're trying to sell a commodity utility product and it's very vague, it becomes very difficult when you start to have the difficult conversations. And the last one is sell your offerings. So from the perspective of, I've done all the hard work, I've got myself up on G-Cloud, everybody's going to come and rush and buy my product. They're not going to do it. You've got to get out there and you've got to make as much noise as you possibly can to the market, to the customers, to the people that you want to actually address. So we do it at Skyscape. We spend a lot of time writing white papers, doing conferences, spending time out there in the marketplace. Get out there with the biggest foghorn you possibly can to talk about cloud in general, to talk about your product in general, and move the whole market forward. So, not wanting to oversimplify it, but if I now relate this market and put it into perspective in terms of where we are and what we do, the marketplace that we talked about is the digital marketplace. Our market manager, Crown Commercial Services. His rule book, the NIST definitions, the definitions that we all live and die by for the definitions of the first 3 lots in G-Cloud. The customers, the public sector buyers. There's a really good, and if you guys haven't seen it, there's a really good blog post on personas and the way that people buy across 3 different personas. Very well written, certainly worth having a look at. It's on the GDS blog. Assurances. So we've all seen the 14 security principles. What assurances can you put behind those 14 security principles? What is your body of evidence that you are going to present to say, actually, I am assured, I have got the right information, I am doing the right things? Your market stall is your G-Cloud bid submission. Make that as attractive as you can, presented in as neat a way as you can, with a simple standard set of pricing, and people will understand it better than the guy at the back who doesn't present his proposition very nicely, and he makes it really hard for people to understand what he's actually doing. So what we do is Skyscape, our growth area is in partners. It will always be in partners. I joined Skyscape 18 months ago. We had 6 partners. We did just over 1% of our business through partners. 18 months later, we got 150 partners, and we're doing 40% of the business through partners. We're taking on 3 or 4 partners a week. Partners who really understand what Skyscape do, delivering that utility commoditized service, either infrastructure, platform, or software, and bundling and delivering their proposition on top of it. So we're seeing ISVs come to us to deliver SaaS-based solutions. We're seeing SIs come to us, sometimes with complementary solutions or sometimes competitive solutions work alongside us to deliver different types of models out to the market. We're seeing managed service providers come in and really take in what we've got as a self-service managed, a self-service environment and delivering a level of management on top of that environment. But we very much see from a Skyscape perspective, what's helping Skyscape? It's partnering. But let's not forget, actually, we say these things are easy, but public sector and addressing the public sector, certainly when we get up into the higher levels of security, there are 3 key things that you need to make sure that you're doing. Security assurance and accreditation, worth a presentation on each of them in their own right, but they're all very, very interlinked. Make sure you've got a very strong story, or you've got the will to make a very strong story in those spaces. Make sure you've got a credible body of evidence. Make sure you understand how and where you're going to for accreditation. Connectivity. So public sector, a lot of public sector connections are closed networks, PSN, M3, etc. If your customer is connected to those networks and wants to consume the services over those networks, you can't just switch those networks on. You have to have some consideration in terms of how you're going to connect onto those networks, how you're going to deliver services across them. And the last one, we talked about it already. Putting a proposition up on G-Cloud and spending months and months and months getting the fanciest service description you can is only going to get you so far. You have to get out there in the market with everyone else in the G-Cloud market and progressively push the whole of the G-Cloud market forward. Because as the G-Cloud and the cloud services grow, then we'll all take our fair share and we'll all start to be more successful in that space. So for me, G-Cloud can be as transformative for vendors as it is for customers. You've got to really think about the way that you partner, the way that you introduce best practice within your models, and you've got to really think about how you get out there and promote your services. And those things are the things that make Skyscape, and are making Skyscape very successful in this space. So that's me. Any questions now, or do you want to hold them till the last minute?
Well, let's hold them till the last thing. So I think it's
Simon.
Simon up next, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. When I was asked to do this, I thought I was going to be the last person up, but fortunately for me, I'm not. And until Saturday, I also didn't realise I needed to do slides, so you're going to have to excuse what I put up. I've missed the important part, which John had earlier, which is that these are my views, not necessarily those of my employer. And it was, in fact, quite a decision for them to let me out of King's Place for the day to come and speak my mind and share my opinions. But what I want to quickly cover today is sort of our story, what we've done, what our approach is, some of the half a dozen key lessons and things that people should think about, and then maybe a winding up thought as to where we all are. Who are, oh God, wrong way, we aren't Skyscape. Who are CGI? That's the blurb, but for 90% of what we are in the UK, CGI is Logica. We were purchased by a Canadian company 2 years ago, and it's been a great synergy. We were places that they weren't, and they were places where we weren't. There were 600 CGI employees in the UK and 5,000 Logica folks. We've now got 5,600 people in the UK, and it's been quite a good integration, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Our story, we'll talk about things we should be doing in a bit, but I think it all started back in 2013. We knew we needed to get involved with the whole of the G-Cloud thing. Our customers were asking about it, and we have a responsibility to them. There's no doubt about that. We started in our sweet spot, which for us, 60-odd% of our business is IL3 and above. So we started off with an IL3 cloud. But we didn't just have that idea. We thought, well, what is cloud? Where is the marketplace going? What's the business case for doing this? And we couldn't really think of one, because whenever we went and sat down with our lords and masters and said, we want to build a cloud, they say, okay, well, what are you going to put on it? Well, we don't know, because there's a marketplace out there. For us, that was a big change. And it was probably helped by the move to CGI, a little bit more entrepreneurial as a Canadian company. And we largely presented a business case of, if we don't do this, then we're going to be letting our customers down, and we're not going to be in the position we want to be in the market. So that was our business case, was if we don't do this, you know, I'm going to say we're dead in the water, but we're not where we need to be. So there were some big thoughts about what we actually needed to construct and what we actually needed to build. And the other thing that sort of became very clear is that from an entrance perspective, from a market entry perspective, cloud doesn't need to be that expensive. It's scalable. But it's scalable for us as SIs as well as it is for our customers. So we sat down and had a big thought, and our big idea was, well, if we know that there's issues with all the various networks, all the various host networks, RLI, PNN, N3, what we actually need is a common cloud architecture, which we know we can glue together when all the networks get sorted out and everybody's happy. So we came up with a reference architecture, which we started off constructing for our IL3 business, the Secure Government Cloud. That quickly grew. We've recently commissioned our commercial cloud service, and we've got a number of, I guess you could call them community or private clouds for our defence and our NHS business. They're all the same architecture, and we hope that one day, quite shortly, we'll be able to bring them together under the same orchestration layer because they're the same core architecture. Where's this got us to now? Well, if I was to be looking forward into February, in February, we're going to be running over 1,000 VMs, which is quite a big chunk for us at IL3/official in new money. And we've also managed to get this cloud, as with Kate's cloud, we've managed to get this one accredited to official over PSN Encrypt, which was quite a big step for us and an important thing for us to achieve. But that's enough about the details. I can press the right button. How did we do it? I think one of the problems with being SI, it's like any government department. You've got lots of towers, you've got lots of groups, lots of cliques. And something that's such a big transformation as cloud itself, when things happen so quickly, relationships build, services delivered quickly, contracts are shorter, you've got to change the way the whole organization works. So we created our own internal brand, our own, what does cloud mean to folks? We still come across people like that in our organization that don't quite really get cloud. So one of the things we did was we created a catalog. And it's just a very simple structure. Thieved a lot of the words and the structures from the G-Cloud 3 catalog approach. And we pointed at it with everybody in the organization and said, when cloud comes along, you're going to have something in that box. Cloud adoption, consulting type stuff, integration type stuff. Service integration, end user services. There's a box on here for everybody across the organization. That caught their attention, that got their imagination. And that's how we've been doing the whole of the G-Cloud thing. It's not just a top-down strategy, but it's a bottom-up strategy. We also told people that just because we've got lots of automation and just because cloud is quite different, it doesn't mean we have to get rid of the architects, the security folks, the service architects. And I've put this particular picture up here because it's a very important one that people refer to all the time, which is the cloud catalog on G-Cloud. It's just a big bunch of Lego. And from where we are in the market, when we've got a lot of customers come to us and say, we've got these big disaggregated things, or we want a bit of RM717, we want a bit of our own thing, but we really like some of your G-Cloud stuff. It's the building blocks for us. So we're sort of coming at it from a slightly different angle. And it's been a very important way of communicating across our organization. So from an SI perspective, it's been very important to level the communication field and get everybody in the same patch. Because you'll always find little corners in the West Country or in Scotland that aren't so close to all the noise in London, and they really don't get the cloud stuff. The G-Cloud challenges. I'll jump straight to this one. The things which continually come up against the wall. Commercial. The whole of this thing about transparency. We're going through a fun approval cycle at the moment with G-Cloud 6, where we have to go to our Lords and Masters. But don't forget, all these prices are published. They're already out there. The fact of the matter is that a lot of our organization, when we're bidding for big OGs, or when we're bidding for big work in commercial sector, they all log on to the digital marketplace, take down our propositions and some of our customers, and they price things up that way. This is reducing the cost of sale for the traditional stuff as well, not just G-Cloud. This is making a difference right across our business. And I don't think anybody, is going to be surprised when the DATS framework in Scotland or RM1058 crops up, and you see a lot of the phrases and the words pretty much the same as they are in some of the G-Cloud propositions. As an industry group, this has forced us to bring together all of our service work, all of our stories and our narratives. And it's also forced us to go out to the marketplace to find partners to do things we can't do. You know, I made a comment about Kate and Memset and the level of skills, and it's the same with you guys down in the Skyscape. But you do things that we can't do, and there's some complementary things in there which we've got to build. So for us, the internal controls were always a big headache. And in fact, because I'm trying to think of things which haven't been raised today already, I want to point out transition. Don't confuse transition with transformation. When we're bidding into customers, when we're showing them G-Cloud answers and responding to their questions, we're always seeing people getting it confused. What's transition? What's transformation? What's moving from A to B, and what's actually improving the process around it? Don't make the mistake of getting the two things confused, because you can price yourself out of the market. You know, it comes back to the old idiom of just answer the question. You know, don't try to add too much in. The thing that shocked us, and it is put another big challenge to us, is pace. You know, on a Wednesday afternoon, you'll get an email from Home Office or the MOJ or another department, and it'll say, okay, 5 days' time, could you price and scale a new EDRMS solution for us? Or, I've got 50 apps, I want to transform them to cloud, can you do it? And can you tell us in 5 days whether you can do it? I mean, for us, for an SME, that's wonderful, because you only have to go into little bits of detail. But for an SI like us, changing the way we work and actually getting that kind of thing out of the door without assuming too much risk and without, you know, appearing to break our internal controls is a bit of a challenge. But we've got there. We've got there quite successfully. One thing that we've been very successful with, it's a theme that's come up a couple of times today, is to build a network of partners. We have an SME program. We've got about 130 active SMEs on the moment on there. We're actually running at 17% of our work is through SMEs. And we're also now getting, you know, SMEs, I'll mention one, I'll name drop AI, coming to talk to us about opportunities that they've got that we could work with them on. SMEs are very important, not just in public sector, but we're also now finding, you know, in one of the buildings here today, in Canary Wharf, we've got an SME who we've met in public sector. They've got a very credible solution, and you know, they're spilling out into our commercial business now. Because the commercial half of our business is saying, how the heck did you manage to do all this stuff in cloud so quickly and so securely? You've got financial services, you've got insurance, you've got all these interesting sectors that are quite close to public sector, are really getting interested in how we made this happen and how we make the technologies happen. And I think that the final point is an important one, an organizational understanding. Sales teams have gone in our world now. We don't have that big, shiny salesman that speaks the speak and has the smile. The people that sell are the people on the ground, the operational people, the account people. They get a weekly, well, fortnightly mail hit talking about what propositions we've got, what we can do, what our partners are doing. Here's an interesting SME. And we push it out that way. So we are trying to change significantly, and we're seeing quite a lot of momentum through us doing that. I'll jump to key learnings now. If I had to stand up in front of my board and say the things that we've done differently that make the difference, thing one is getting an evangelist. If you're an SI or if you're a large organization that works in towers, get somebody who's a troublemaker, get somebody who can interfere. You know, off the record, my title in CGI is quite often the director of interfering. It doesn't sound quite right, but I'm allowed to badger people and make stuff happen. Unblock things. It's very easy for people to block stuff and make things happen in an old way because that's traditional, because that's habitual. We're changing that. I'm constantly, at least every day, telling people that G-Cloud is not a cloud. You'd be surprised how many people still don't get that. We've invested in stuff that we're good at, but what we've also done is started up dialogues and found partners for the things that we're not good at. And when you find your partners or your SMEs, don't just sit there and say, right, let's wait for the business to come, or this relationship's not working because we haven't got any business through it yet. Give them a voice in your organization. And we have brown bag sessions at lunchtimes. We had somebody come in to talk about DevOps last week, and we had 400 people dial in to a call to listen about DevOps. It's important that you build that relationship with the SME and with your SME partners to actually bring benefit. Because what happens is suddenly one Wednesday afternoon, you know, a G-Cloud thing will arrive, and you've got to get on the phone, and you need to have had those conversations and agreed already how you're going to work. We're working with a couple of SMEs at the moment in that way. We're saying what might happen, what does the pipeline probably look like, not, well, we're not going to work together because we haven't made any orders through this yet. That's not what it's about. Just to reiterate everybody else's points, don't wait to be found. Something that's very interesting that we're finding at the minute, and I think it's a cultural thing. We've assumed because the ODUs are 7 to 10 years and the answer's way out there, the customer's always right, because you never challenge the customer, because if you challenge the customer, that's a great way of losing points. The customer isn't always right, actually. We quite often go back and challenge them, and it's giving us our confidence again. And that's probably something that we've learnt of the SME community. And another thing that we would have never have done, probably even 12 months ago, is ask for advice. Whether it's James in PSN, whether it's Tony, whether it's Raphael in G-Cloud, people are only a phone call away, and they're actually very helpful. So when we see bad behavior, when we have questions, when something happens, when a customer's struggling, very happy to pick up the phone, and there's some very helpful people to answer. Right. Sorry, this might not work, so I'll have to excuse myself here. I was trying to think about what to say next, and I asked everybody in my organisation, what do I need to ask when Tony's here and when all the GDS folks are here? And I stumbled across something that's allowed me to make into a story, because I was doing my Christmas letters with the kids at the weekend, and I've got a couple of teenagers and a 3-year-old. And whilst the teenagers were arguing about how they were going to divvy out their iTunes vouchers, we asked the 3-year-old, who said, what do you want for Christmas? And he said, well, I don't want anything because I've got everything that I need. Which, when you look at it, he's inherited lots of stuff from his sisters and from his cousins, and he has. And then he dashed into the room and he said, I want an action. And we all looked around and said, well, what's an action? Well, an action, for those of you who aren't aware, is what you call a joining piece in a wooden train set. We said, well, why do you want an action, Harry? And it turned out that he's inherited so much of this train track that he can't actually put it all together. And he's missing one piece. So all he wants from Christmas is one piece of joining train track so that he can have a huge train track. And that led me into sort of my cheesy story, which was that, you know, last year when we were here, we all wanted lots of clouds. We went away and built them, and we've all got our PGA IL3, IL2 official PSNP, PSNA clouds. And it's all good. But the issue is our users want official clouds, or assured clouds, more appropriately, which are all connected. Every customer we talk to at the moment wants to know how on earth they're going to connect up a PSNP cloud to the internet, how's the gateway going to happen, and they want to know now, not next spring. So if Tony, or if the other Tony is still in the room, I want to ask them this on behalf of certainly CGI and hopefully everybody else. If we promise to be good, can you please send us an architectural pattern that allows us to deliver better value to public sector in 2015, because we honestly believe that's going to make a difference. Thank you. That's my session.
Okay, so the honour of the last speaker of the day goes to James from Huddle.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So I get the graveyard shift. Hopefully you guys will stay awake, the caffeine hit's still going. I guess the graveyard shift also comes with another issue in that I've had pretty much my thunder stolen from every single bullet point on my slides so far, like quite literally. But hopefully this is a good way to kind of conclude today. So I'm James Matthews. I'm not Richard Clark. He was scheduled to come, but he's in Chicago at the moment. So I'm Huddle's Director for Enterprise Technology. Effectively, I kind of facilitate this. I'm the conduit between our product group and what we're building and all of our public sector, but also private sector customers as well. So I spend a lot of time client-facing. And I have been, for my sins, involved in every single one of our G-Cloud submissions, from G-Cloud 1 all the way through to 6. I was also in charge of doing our pan-government accreditation, so that was fun as well. Right. So for those of you that don't know Huddle, we are a British SME. So we were founded in 2006, 2 Brits. who wanted to kind of build a collaboration platform. We're about 200 employees now. We've been growing very quickly. We're headquartered here in the UK, so we've got offices just up in Aldgate, but we do have offices in San Francisco, Washington, DC, New York as well. We were the first pan-government accredited IL2 service for collaboration, so we were very much kind of the guinea pigs going through that process with CESG. It did take a long time, probably took about 9 months to kind of get there, but as was alluded to before, CESG have been very, very helpful, kind of working us through that process. It has been interesting. I have kind of noted a lot of the people who've been up here today talking about the successes have been the PGA guys. So the ones that have actually, gone through that process, gone through that due diligence. It was just a little something I noticed. We have an IL2 service that we run. We also have an IL3 service that we run as a joint venture with FCO Services, so in their government secure application environment down in Milton Keynes. And we're used by about 80 to 85% of central government, so we do actually have quite a big brand, which is very different to our public sector where we're up against, the Microsofts and the Googles of this world. So from a G-Cloud perspective, really, we have participated in every single iteration. And it's been a really interesting journey seeing how this has all changed and evolved. We accounted for about 89% of the first quarter of the first iteration. So it was one of those kind of big bang things that happened. It was the usual. It was one big contract that makes the stat look good. But it was a nice bit of kind of publicity for us and helped us really kind of move very quickly on that journey. It still is our primary contract vehicle. So we work across public and private sector, but public sector is a big part of our business, and obviously G-Cloud forms the major contract vehicle as part of that. We're the second largest supplier on Lot 3. I'll chat about lots a little bit later. Again, kind of a lot of this ground's already been covered. And we're really committed to the G-Cloud. We think, obviously, it does come with its challenges. We've spoken plenty about that today. But actually, from a conceptual standpoint, we really are very much behind this. So this was an interesting conversation that came up earlier, and I know John was talking about this, and this whole, productized SKUs versus actually putting simple offerings. What we found was we started doing the simple approach, huddle professional, huddle enterprise, very, very kind of generic service descriptions. And what we found is that had two effects. One, it's hard to say, no one searches for huddle, right? You search for something, you search for a functionality. And so it just wasn't showing up in search results. The other issue for us was what are people actually using huddle for? Collaboration is one of these very generic terms, right? People can use it for everything from sharing pictures of cats to actually running a project and everything in between. So it was very, very difficult for us to get any kind of business intelligence around what huddle was actually being used for. So when Rich came on board, one of the first things that he did was look at, right, well, what can we do to actually turn this into a set of SKUs? Now, technically, this stuff's exactly the same. We don't differentiate. There's a couple of tweaks here and there, but really, Huddle is a multi-tenanted solution. That there is no major differences technically. But from a service description standpoint, from an implementation, again, one of the nice things about cloud, it's not a CD, it's not a piece of software that you hoik over the fence. It's a service. So the value add that we can provide, whether, there's a whole host of these. I just pulled out 3. Let's say for the CCGs, there's a whole bunch of services that we can offer, or templates or advice that we can give, because we're aware of this market. We've got people that have spent lots of time working with these kind of guys. So let's give them that advice and the benefit of our expertise in that area. So it allows us to get better reporting, but also sort of deliver better value. Creating commercial models that encourage volume. Again, it seems commonsensical, but one of the first things that we did was we just put kind of standard pricing on G-Cloud back in the first and second iterations. Now that then becomes very, very difficult as you're looking to scale to bigger and bigger deals. Cloud generally is about land and expand. Again, we've heard a couple of points earlier about that. So how do we balance being able to make it viable for us to offer small deals, what we would call kind of small, so 50 and under, all the way through to the multi-thousands of seats, and make sure that value proposition actually stays intact. So you do need to build that into your commercial proposals. And supporting the wider vendor community. So, for us, we speak at a lot of these events. You know, we are one of the largest SMEs, so we do tend to get a lot of the smaller SMEs come to us and say, right, you know, what's been your experience in G-Cloud? What advice do you have? And it's not an altruistic thing. It makes sense for there to be this holistic approach to G-Cloud. You know, we've spoken to SkyScope, we've spoken to CGI, we found Accenture offering Huddle services long before we'd even spoken to them. You know, it doesn't make sense for there to be that disconnect. We do need to work together to be able to provide solutions, you know, whether it's working with ISVs and other smaller SMEs so we can provide, you know, bigger, better solutions makes a lot of sense. So like I say, every single one of these has already been brought up today. But educating public sector, G-Cloud is not a cloud. We have found the minute you get out of central gov, the minute you get away from people who are on the digital marketplace looking for a business solution, or you know, it's an inbound call, we need to share files, we need to do X, we need to do Y. There's still that disconnect between, you know, for us saying you can procure it through G-Cloud, there's still a lot of confusion around what that actually means. I think point 2 has been made more than a couple of times today, but it really is important. You know, we do see that people think it's an entitlement to revenue, which is, you know, it seems commonsensical to those of us that have been successful on G-Cloud, but I think to many of us it's not, and it needs to be driven home. Driving the actual overall usage, I mean, currently it looks to be about, you know, about 0.1% of annual public sector ICT spending. So can we call G-Cloud game-changing? Probably not just yet, but the ideas and the motivation behind it, certainly. I think in a couple of years' time, if we're revisiting these kind of presentations, it's certainly going to be the case. I'm going to swap the last two around. So again, the security and the accreditation. Not all clouds are created equal. One man's IL2 is different to another man's IL2. This whole shift away, again, being someone who's gone through the pan-government accreditation, and to see that now move, and it's not the rug being pulled from under your feet, but we have put a lot of effort into this and continue to do so. So what does this now mean? And there is a lot of confusion. So not only do we have the switch from the IL levels to official sensitive, we have this movement with decentralizing who's the CIRO on a business project. If you're procuring cloud as a consuming organization, not through central IT, where does the CIRO come from? Do you need to involve someone? There's just, you know, it's very, very muddy water at the moment. Buying commodity services rather than skills, to go back to Kate's point, I went to the effort of putting a chart together. There's no surprise what's going to happen here. You know, Huddle being the cloud software as a service, it's been great to see that upward movement, but of course, when you look at the actual specialist cloud services, you know, should there be this disconnect? This does account for, if you aggregate it over the entire length, it does account for 79%. So should there be that disconnect? I'm sure if you're a cloud service provider, you'd say yes. Again, as a SaaS provider, we're very interested in understanding why there is that disconnect. And thinking about it, you know, we'd expect there to be a drop-off at some point as the service providers do start to advise on procuring commodity services. You've got integration, you've got other complications that arise. However, because this only accounts for 0.1%, then, you know, maybe as the entire market matures, we'll see these kind of percentages actually close together. So there'll still be big growth in all of these areas, but we would like to hope that this disconnect will start to actually decrease as the other kind of platforms take off. So I've gone through that really quickly just because it's already been covered. But, you know, effectively, we are a very strong advocate of the G-Cloud program. There are challenges, you know, there's plenty of things that have been mentioned today, but I think the will behind it is fantastic. It does really expedite our sales cycle. You know, we saw risk assessments, going through procurement, all of that great stuff. It just would add months. And again, a cloud sales cycle is typically months anyway, so you're looking at doubling your sales cycle. So G-Cloud has a fantastic effect. Again, this movement to decentralized security is something that we're a little bit concerned about because it will stretch things back out again, but that's something that we're handling as we go along. Productized SKUs enabling flexibility and more granular reporting. Again, that's a big benefit to us, but I think, you know, equally it does provide people with more insight into what Huddle can actually provide them, working with the wider community, and that further education on both the vendor and the client side.